Let's start with the room. I can still picture it clearly. I made tea. People gathered holding the cups more for warmth. The tea kept getting cold, not because anyone forgot to drink it, but because nobody was ready to relax. I was sitting with a group of Afghan women not long after they arrived in Arizona. We came together to go over how to fill out school forms, how to make doctor's appointments, the simple act of making a phone call, and that it was okay to ask a question without hanging up. Within minutes, the conversation shifted into a pattern I recognized. It was difficult for these women to stay in the moment and be present. With every new scenario, they repeatedly fell back on the past. Stories surfaced and then resurfaced. The same nagging questions kept returning in slight variations. I could hear the weight of what they lived through, but I saw the context. Their body language had been conditioned. They had been taught to equate silence with safety, that to speak up against authority led to consequences. Let's take a moment. Stay with me, I said. I told them to imagine a clinic where a doctor asks them a question that they don't understand. What happens? I watched how their shoulders dropped and their voice tumbled, but we practiced what lives in the pauses of conversations. We practiced the phrase, "Could you please repeat that?" We practiced, "I don't understand," and let that hang in the air. My group gave it a try, and on the first attempt, the voices came out as whispers. But the second time, it was much more confident and clear. Over the course of the next several days, the dynamics of our meetings visibly changed. That part about the automatic nodding, it stopped. Silence felt like tangible thinking instead of instinctual reactions to danger. Their shift didn't rely on perfect vocabulary. It relied on intuitively growing, choosing responses over repeating reflexes. I carry that room with me because wherever I work, I witness those same invisible dynamics. As a medical and legal interpreter, I observe immigrants and people who may not speak English. They nod and say okay, and everyone treats that as understanding. Later, these individuals call back, confused and overwhelmed because anything other than okay felt risky. I watched as a patient softly murmured okay, all while gripping the strap of her bag so tightly her knuckles turned pale. Inside that one word, it might sound polite, but lives shame, even traumatic encounters with authority. Most of us have been on the other side of these moments. All of us have nodded along in a meeting that we haven't fully understood. We said okay because it felt easier than complicating the process. Rarely do misunderstandings announce themselves. We mistake these failures for efficiency. And so, forms are signed, meetings end, and conversations move on. But the cost shows up later, elsewhere, to someone else who didn't feel safe in that moment to interrupt that moment. I see this in a completely different setting. As a UNICEF youth advocate, I train other up-and-coming youth advocates to be youth advocates. People imagine that a majority of this training is about public speaking or instilling confidence. But what I find is that it boils down to navigation, how to hold one's ground in spaces meant to test belonging. I run scenarios. You have 3 minutes. An adult interrupts you halfway through. Then I watch what happens in a trainee's voice, how their words speed up and tumble out. I remember I watched a student freeze mid-role play that we were doing. She smiled and tried to laugh, but she confided in me that she had been for years talked over in classrooms. Her body instantly relived those hardwired moments. So we built a toolkit for those triggers: a breath before speaking, a sentence that holds the floor. For example, "I'm going to finish this thought." Another sentence that redirects without escalating. Like, "I'll take questions when I'm done." Like learning lines in a play we practiced until it didn't feel like a performance. We gave options to provide agency in real time, like pausing or asking a teammate to jump in. Rather than speaking tricks, these are ways of redirecting outcomes when confronted with established authority. This is cultural literacy. It's about reading what isn't written. It's recognizing that when someone returns to the same story, it's an attempt to stay safe, to understand what happened, or to prevent something from reoccurring. Teaching cultural literacy means teaching us all to notice and respect that space. People talk about misinformation as if it comes down to a lack of facts, but more often what I witness is a hunger for certainty, because uncertainty has been very expensive. Many trust the loudest voice, equating loudness with authority. Some cling to familiar narratives because familiarity feels safe. From outrage to oversimplification, the current state of the internet rewards swift reaction. But true context moves slower. True context asks, where did I get this information from? Who benefits from my belief? What am I missing? This represents the vast difference between reacting and thinking. I think back to that circle of Afghan women and the moment that their questions evolved. I think about how memory physically occupies the body and how a person quietly decides whether it's safe to speak. Teaching cultural literacy means teaching us all how to notice and respect that space, how to stay present when our past try to pull us back, to interpret a room instead of being defined by it. From the outside, the shift appears small. It looks like a young person quietly insisting, "Allow me to finish." Or it's someone recognizing that a situation is more about its context rather than our immediate reaction to it. Pauses possess magnitude, scope, impact. Together, it changes the direction in life. Let's get lost in what is said, not in what is assumed. Do we understand what I said? Are you okay? Thank you.